Hello everyone. Naruto Fix here, back with another amazing What If Naruto fanfic. Which is, what if Naruto was forced to guard a secret that could destroy Konoha? Part 1. If you enjoy Naruto stories, don't forget to like and subscribe, it really helps the journey grow.
Now let's head right into today's fanfic. The night Naruto learned the truth, Konoha was sleeping peacefully. That was what made it unbearable. Lanterns glowed softly along empty streets. The village walls stood calm and unthreatened. Somewhere, a child laughed in the dreams, unaware of how fragile the world truly was. Naruto stood at the edge of the Hokage Tower, staring down at everything he loved, and felt something inside him fracture without a sound. The secret was not a weapon. Weapons could be destroyed. This was worse. It began with a summons that carried no urgency in its tone but every ounce of it in meaning. Naruto was called not to the council chamber, not to a war room, but to an underground archive few people even knew existed. The path down was lined with seals so old they predated the village's current name. The air itself felt heavy, as if truth had weight. Waiting for him were only three people. The Hokage, the head of intelligence, and a figure Naruto had never seen before, hooded, silent, and unmistakably dangerous. No one offered greetings. No one wasted time. "This never leaves this room," the Hokage said. Naruto nodded instinctively, though he had no idea what he was agreeing to. The hooded figure stepped forward and placed a scroll on the table. It was not sealed with chakra. It was sealed with intent. Layered commands, prohibitions, and failsafes that screamed one thing very clearly. This knowledge was not meant to survive. Naruto read. And the world tilted. The secret was buried deep in the village's foundation, older than the Hokage system, older than most clans. A contingency created in an era when survival demanded unforgivable choices. Something sealed not because it was evil, but because it was true. Konoha's founding piece was incomplete. It was balanced on a lie. Long ago, when the village was young and fragile, an external force had threatened to erase it before it could take root. Not an army, not a beast, an ideology, one capable of unraveling loyalty, erasing identity, and turning villages inward against themselves. Konoha did not defeat it. Konoha contained it. Contained it beneath its own soil, bound to the village's chakra network, woven so deeply into its foundation that removing it would tear the village apart from the inside. If revealed, the trust holding Konoha together would collapse. If destroyed, the seals would fail. If ignored, it would remain dormant. Barely. Naruto lifted his eyes slowly. "You're telling me," he said carefully, "that Konoha exists because this thing is buried underneath it?" The Hokage didn't answer immediately. "Yes," they said at last. "And it will remain buried. As long as it is guarded." Quote. Naruto felt a chill run through him. Guarded by who? The room went quiet. Naruto already knew the answer. "You need someone," the intelligence chief said, "who cannot be manipulated, who understands isolation, who can carry hatred without letting it spread." Quote. Naruto laughed once, hollow. "You're describing a container." "No," the Hokage said quietly. "We're describing you." Naruto understood then. This wasn't about strength. This wasn't even about trust. This was about endurance. The secret could not be shared. Not with allies. Not with the council. Not even with the people Naruto loved most. The fewer who knew, the safer Konoha remained. And Naruto was the only one who could be trusted not to act on it impulsively, not to reveal it in anger, not to try to fix it and make everything worse. He hated how true that was. The terms were simple. Naruto would become the living failsafe. His chakra would be tied to the seal's integrity. His awareness would allow him to sense fluctuations, disturbances, attempts at tampering. If the secret ever stirred, he would know. And he would act. Alone, if necessary. Naruto left the chamber hours later. The scroll burned, the knowledge etched permanently into his mind. The village above him felt unchanged. That was the cruelty of it. Nothing looked different. Everything was different. Naruto began to notice things he had never questioned before. Why certain zones of the village were sealed from redevelopment. Why the chakra flow beneath Konoha behaved strangely during times of unrest. Why emotional instability seemed to spread faster in some areas than others. The secret wasn't silent. It was patient. The burden did not crush Naruto immediately. It settled. He walked the streets knowing that beneath his feet lay something that could unravel everything if mishandled. He listened to people argue, complain, laugh, and dream, never knowing how close they lived to a truth that would destroy their faith in the village. Naruto stopped sleeping deeply. He stopped reacting instinctively. Every emotion was filtered now through a single question. Would this make the secret stir? Kurama noticed first. You're holding something back, the fox said one night. Naruto didn't answer. You always do, Kurama continued, but this is different. Naruto stared at the ceiling. If I tell you, he said quietly, it stops being containable. Kurama was silent for a long time. Then you'll carry it alone. Naruto closed his eyes. Yes. The danger didn't come from enemies at first. It came from curiosity. Researchers pushing boundaries. Shinobi experimenting with deeper chakra synchronization. Political figures questioning old restrictions, asking why some knowledge remained forbidden in a village that prided itself on transparency after so much war. Naruto shut those paths down gently. Redirected funding. Altered priorities. Distracted attention. He became something subtle and terrifying. A guardian no one knew existed. The hardest moments were personal. When someone spoke passionately about honesty. When someone argued that secrets were what destroyed villages. When Naruto agreed with them, and said nothing. Because this secret didn't just threaten Konoha's image. It threatened its existence. Naruto understood the final cruelty of his role when the Hokage spoke to him one evening, voice heavy with exhaustion. If this ever comes out, they said, you will be blamed. Naruto nodded. I know. You'll be hated. I know. And Konoha may still fall. Naruto looked out over the village lights. Then at least, he said softly, it won't fall because I was afraid to carry it. Quote. That night, Naruto stood alone above the sealed ground, feeling the faintest pulse of something old, restrained, and waiting. He did not hate it. He did not pity it. He acknowledged it, and made a silent vow. No matter what it cost him. No matter how alone he became. This secret would die with him. Because some truths were too destructive to be free. The first sign that the secret was waking did not come as a surge of chakra or a violent reaction. It came as restlessness. Naruto felt it while standing in the middle of the village market, surrounded by voices and color and life. For a brief moment, the noise felt too sharp, too crowded, as if the air itself were tightening. His instincts flared. Not toward danger above ground, but downward. Toward the sealed foundation beneath Konoha. The sensation faded as quickly as it appeared, but Naruto stood frozen long after everyone else continued moving around him. It had noticed something. Or someone had noticed it. Naruto returned to the underground archive that same night, alone. The seals responded to his chakra instantly, parting just enough to confirm what he already feared. The containment was intact, but strained, not weakening, reacting. The secret beneath the village was not mindless. It responded to collective unrest, to ideological friction, to moments when trust within the village fractured even slightly. It fed not on hatred, but on doubt. And doubt was spreading. Konoha was changing. Peace had allowed questions to surface that war had suppressed. Younger shinobi questioned why some records remained sealed. Civilians pushed for transparency in governance. Scholars debated whether a village built on secrecy could ever be truly stable. All valid questions. All dangerous. Naruto listened to these discussions without participating, his jaw tight, every word landing heavier than the last. The irony was suffocating. The very values that made Konoha stronger, curiosity, accountability, openness, were the same ones that could unravel it if applied to the wrong truth. Naruto could feel the secret stir each time those debates intensified. He began intervening more directly. Not as a shinobi, as a modifier of outcomes. Research proposals were delayed. Committees were redirected. Public forums lost funding quietly. Conversations were steered away from certain historical eras with carefully planted distractions. Naruto hated how good he became at it. This wasn't manipulation through force. It was manipulation through timing. The worst part was that no one noticed. They thanked him for being supportive, praised his wisdom, called him a stabilizing presence in a changing village. If only they knew what he was stabilizing against. Kurama sensed the shift more clearly with each passing week. It's reacting faster now, the fox observed one night. Your village is pulling at old threads. Naruto sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed. They deserve answers. Kurama's voice was low. Do they deserve annihilation? Naruto didn't answer. Because that was the question he asked himself every night. The first direct threat came from inside the system. A high-ranking researcher approached Naruto privately. Not confrontational, not suspicious. Curious. There's a gap, they said. In the early chakra network records. Something foundational is missing. I think it was intentionally removed. Naruto felt his pulse spike, though his expression didn't change. Some things were sealed for good reasons, he replied carefully. The researcher nodded. That's what worries me. Naruto understood then that this person would not stop. Not because they were malicious. Because they were right. That night, Naruto stood directly above the deepest point of the seal, feeling the low, almost imperceptible vibration beneath his feet. The secret felt closer now, not louder, but more aware. It wasn't trying to escape. It was waiting to be understood. And understanding it was the one thing that could destroy everything. Naruto finally realized the full cruelty of his role. He was not guarding the village from an enemy. He was guarding the village from itself. From its desire to know. From its belief that truth always healed. From the dangerous assumption that transparency was always moral. Naruto had once believed that too. The pressure began to show. He smiled less. Ate mechanically. Let conversations end early. Even those closest to him noticed the distance, though they didn't understand its source. Someone asked him once, gently, "Are you afraid of something?" Naruto wanted to scream the truth. Instead, he said, "I'm afraid of losing what we've built." It wasn't a lie. Just incomplete. The Hokage called him in again after a particularly heated public debate about sealed histories. "They're getting close," they admitted quietly. Naruto nodded. "I know. We can shut it down more forcefully." Naruto shook his head immediately. "No. That would create exactly the kind of unrest it feeds on." Quote. The Hokage closed their eyes. "Then what do we do?" Naruto looked up, resolve hardening into something painful and absolute. "We let them believe they're choosing not to know." Naruto understood what that meant. He would have to become the voice of restraint publicly. Advocate for patience. Argue that some answers required time. Not because they were dangerous, but because they were incomplete. He would have to lie without lying. Guide without revealing. And accept the hatred that came with standing in the way of truth. That night, Naruto felt the seal pulse again. Stronger this time. Not in threat. In recognition. The secret knew it was being protected. And it knew exactly who was standing between it and the world. Naruto stepped into the role slowly, deliberately. He did not announce his stance. He did not give speeches about restraint or caution. Instead, he became something more unsettling than opposition. He became reasonable. In meetings, he asked for more data. In public discussions, he spoke about timing rather than denial. He framed his arguments around responsibility, not secrecy. People listened. At first, the researcher did not give up. They never did. Naruto noticed the pattern immediately. Requests for access submitted at odd hours, inquiries routed through secondary committees, casual conversations designed to test reactions. The person wasn't trying to expose anything maliciously. They were chasing coherence, the kind of mind that couldn't tolerate missing pieces. Naruto recognized himself in that pursuit. That terrified him. He began to counter in subtler ways. He arranged for alternative discoveries. Legitimate, impressive findings that redirected attention. He encouraged exploration into parallel theories that explained the anomalies well enough to satisfy most minds without touching the core truth. It worked. But each diversion sent a faint tremor through the seal beneath the village. The secret did not like being ignored. It liked being approached, even indirectly. Naruto felt it most during moments of emotional unrest. A public disagreement turned bitter. A council vote split too evenly. A scandal shook confidence in leadership. Each time, the seal reacted. Not violently, hungrily. The thing beneath Konoha was not fueled by chaos. It was fueled by fracture. By the moment trust faltered and people turned inward, questioning whether the village deserved their faith. Naruto realized then how delicate the balance truly was. The secret was not passive. It was symbiotic. Kurama spoke less now. When he did, his voice was careful. "It's listening," the fox said one night. Naruto didn't ask how he knew. "I can feel it too," Naruto replied. "Like it's waiting for a mistake." Kurama's growl was low. "It thinks it belongs here." Naruto swallowed. Maybe it does. The thought sickened him. The turning point came during a public forum. A civilian speaker stood before a gathered crowd, voice shaking not with fear, but with conviction. "We're told Konoha has learned from its past," they said. "That we're better because we face our mistakes. Then why are parts of our history still sealed? What are we so afraid of?" Murmurs spread. Agreement. Naruto felt the seal pulse sharply beneath his feet. Harder than ever before. This wasn't curiosity anymore. This was momentum. Naruto stepped forward. Not as Hokage. Not as guardian. As Naruto Uzumaki. "There are truths," he said evenly, "that heal when shared. And there are truths that destroy the very people asking for them." Someone shouted back, "That sounds like control." Naruto met the gaze calmly. "It sounds like responsibility." Boos followed. Not many. Enough. Naruto felt the first real shift in how the crowd looked at him. Suspicion. That night, Naruto understood what the Hokage had meant. If the secret ever came out, Naruto would be blamed. Because he was the face of restraint. The one standing between people and the answers they demanded. The seal pulsed again. Soft this time. Satisfied. Naruto sat alone in the underground chamber hours later, palms pressed to the cold stone above the containment. For the first time, he allowed himself to feel the full weight of the role he had accepted. He was no longer guarding the village from an external threat. He was guarding it from a truth it wanted. And the more he resisted, the more isolated he became. He realized then that this was the final cruelty of the secret. It did not just threaten to destroy Konoha if revealed. It forced its guardian to erode trust, fracture relationships, and absorb hatred long before that moment ever arrived. Naruto closed his eyes. If this was the price of keeping the village standing, he would pay it, even if, by the end, no one remembered why. The isolation became real the day Naruto realized people had started talking around him instead of to him. Conversations stopped when he approached. Meetings grew polite, careful, hollow. Not hostile, worse, cautious. As if everyone sensed that Naruto stood in the way of something important, even if they couldn't name what that something was. Trust had not shattered. It had thinned. And thin trust was exactly what the secret beneath Konoha needed. Naruto felt it one evening while standing on a rooftop, watching the village settle into night. The seal pulsed, not sharply, not urgently, but steadily, like a slow heartbeat syncing with the unrest above. It was adapting. The secret had existed for generations, buried beneath eras of war and peace alike. It understood patience better than any living thing. It did not need to break free. It only needed the village to doubt itself long enough. Naruto finally understood the true danger. This secret was not meant to be revealed. It was meant to be believed in. The more people suspected that something was hidden, the more power it gained. The more Naruto resisted questions, the more central he became to the narrative of control. He had become the keystone. Remove him, and everything collapsed. The Hokage confronted him privately after another heated public debate ended without resolution. "You're becoming a symbol," they said quietly. Naruto nodded. "I know. And symbols invite opposition." Naruto met their eyes. "So do secrets." The Hokage sighed heavily. "If this continues, they'll push for a vote. Transparency laws. Oversight committees. They'll demand access." Naruto felt a familiar, cold clarity settle in his chest. "Then I won't let it reach that point." He began dismantling the momentum more decisively. Not through censorship. Through exhaustion. He flooded discussions with nuance. Complicated debates with context. Demands with consequences. Every question led to 5 more. Every proposed solution revealed deeper risks. People grew tired. Not convinced. Tired. And tired people stopped pushing. The seal beneath the village responded immediately. It grew quieter. Not weaker. Satisfied. Naruto hated the realization that followed. This thing wasn't just feeding on doubt. It was feeding on effort. On the strain of holding conflicting beliefs. On the fatigue of wanting answers but lacking the strength to face what those answers might do. The secret did not want revelation. It wanted resignation. Kurama's voice broke the silence one night, low and uneasy. "This isn't containment anymore." Naruto opened his eyes slowly. "No, you're shaping the village around it." Naruto swallowed. "If I don't, it shapes the village against itself." Kurama growled softly. "That's not balance. That's erosion." Naruto didn't argue. Because he felt it too. The final warning came without words. Naruto dreamed of standing beneath Konoha, in a vast chamber of seals and stone. The secret did not appear as a form or voice. It manifested as an idea, inevitability. In the dream, Naruto saw futures branching endlessly. In one, the truth was revealed, and the village tore itself apart trying to reconcile its identity with the lie it had been built on. In another, the secret was destroyed, and the foundation of Konoha collapsed, physically, spiritually, irreversibly. In most futures, Naruto stood alone, blamed no matter what he chose. But in one, just one, Naruto removed himself. He woke with his heart racing. The seal pulsed once. Not demanding. Inviting. Naruto finally understood the option no one had spoken aloud. The secret was bound to the village. And to him. If Naruto left, truly left, the seal would weaken slowly, naturally. Not through exposure or destruction, but through distance. The secret would fade into irrelevance as the village reshaped itself without the guardian it depended on. But the cost. Naruto would be remembered as the man who abandoned Konoha when it demanded answers. A coward. A traitor. A villain. Naruto stood at the window as dawn broke, the village glowing softly beneath the rising sun. He loved this place. That was the cruelty of it. To save Konoha, he might have to let it hate him. Naruto did not make the decision immediately. That, too, was deliberate. He understood now that sudden choices created shockwaves, and shockwaves fed the thing beneath the village. So he slowed himself, measured his movements, softened his presence. If he was going to become absence, he would do it the way everything else in this story had been done. Quietly, he began by letting go of influence. Naruto stopped attending public forums. He declined invitations to debates and advisory panels, citing exhaustion, long missions, the need to focus elsewhere. He didn't argue anymore. He didn't redirect conversations. He simply wasn't there. At first, people noticed. Speculation followed. Had he grown tired of scrutiny? Was he avoiding accountability? Had the pressure finally gotten to him? Naruto let those questions exist. Each one hurt. Each one loosened the village's dependence on him just a little more. The seal responded. For the first time in months, Naruto felt the pulse weaken, not vanish, but lose coherence. The rhythm beneath the village became uneven, less synchronized with public unrest. The secret was confused. It had grown used to pressing against him, shaping resistance through his presence. Distance disrupted that pattern. Naruto felt both relief and dread. So this was possible, but it came at a cost he wasn't sure he could fully accept. The Hokage noticed the change within days. "You're withdrawing," they said quietly, when Naruto finally agreed to meet. Naruto didn't deny it. "The village is restless," the Hokage continued. "They're interpreting your silence as avoidance." Quote. Naruto met the gaze steadily. "They're free to interpret it however they want." The Hokage's voice softened. "You're preparing to leave." Naruto closed his eyes briefly. "Yes." The silence that followed was heavier than any accusation. "You know what that will do," the Hokage said at last. Naruto nodded. "They'll feel abandoned, angry, betrayed. And the secret?" Naruto's jaw tightened. "It will weaken. Slowly. Safely." The Hokage leaned back, exhausted. "You're asking the village to survive the truth by surviving without you." Naruto looked away toward the window, toward the streets he had walked since childhood. "I'm asking it to survive at all." That night, Naruto walked through Konoha one last time without purpose. Not to say goodbye. Just to remember. He passed the academy, lights dim, echoes of laughter lingering like ghosts. He crossed the training grounds where his fists had first bled into the dirt. He stood on rooftops where he had once sworn never to abandon this place. The irony did not escape him. But neither did the clarity. People saw him. Some waved uncertainly. Some looked away. Some stared, searching his face for answers he could not give. Naruto gave them nothing. Because answers would bind him again. The seal pulsed faintly as Naruto reached the village boundary. Not angry. Not desperate. Resigned. It had understood the rules of this game long before Naruto ever had. The secret could only exist where belief held it in place. Where a guardian stood between truth and consequence. If Naruto stepped away, the secret would not explode. It would fade. And with it, the lie Konoha had been built upon would lose its grip. Not revealed, not denied, but rendered irrelevant. By time and change. Naruto stopped just beyond the gate and looked back. He felt no peace. Only certainty. He would be hated for this. Misunderstood. Remembered incorrectly. If at all. The village would tell stories about why he left, and none of them would be true. That was the final cruelty of guarding a secret meant to die quietly. Naruto took one step forward. The seal weakened again. Naruto did not cross the border immediately. He waited. Not because of doubt, but because timing mattered more than resolve. If he vanished too suddenly, the village would panic. Panic would sharpen curiosity. Curiosity would dig. And digging was exactly what the secret beneath Konoha responded to. Naruto stayed just long enough for his absence to feel explainable rather than alarming. A long mission. Extended travel. Distance with purpose. The village accepted those explanations because they wanted to. In Naruto's absence, something subtle began to happen. People argued again, but without circling back to him. Meetings grew disorganized, then slowly restructured. Voices that had been quiet before started speaking up, not because they had answers, but because someone had to fill the silence Naruto left behind. The seal weakened another fraction. Naruto felt it even miles away. Like a tension easing from a muscle that had been clenched for too long. The researcher pushed again. Without Naruto present to redirect them, the investigation gained traction, but not momentum. Committees debated jurisdiction. Oversight stalled progress. Questions collided with other questions until nothing moved cleanly. It was messy, but it wasn't dangerous. The secret did not stir. Because doubt was no longer centralized. It was diffused. Naruto watched from afar, sensing fluctuations through his chakra link to the seal. The connection thinned gradually, like a rope fraying without snapping. Each day he remained distant, the secret became less reactive, less aware. It had fed on Naruto's vigilance. Without him, it starved. This realization hurt more than anything else. All this time, Naruto had believed he was containing the threat. In truth, he had been sustaining it. Not by choice, by necessity. Kurama spoke quietly as Naruto rested beneath an open sky far from the village. So this is how it ends, the fox said. Not with a battle. Naruto stared upward. Secrets like this don't end with noise. Quote, they end with being forgotten. Naruto closed his eyes. Yes. Back in Konoha, the tone shifted. People stopped demanding answers and started demanding progress. On housing, training reforms, trade disputes, civilian protections. The village turned outward again, focused on living instead of excavating its foundations. The sealed zones remained sealed. But they were no longer tempting. The seal beneath the village grew quiet enough that Naruto barely felt it anymore. The Hokage sensed it too. They stood alone one night, hand resting against the stone floor of the tower, feeling the faintest echo of what had once been a constant pressure. Naruto had been right. The secret did not need destruction. It needed irrelevance. Naruto did not return. Weeks passed. Then months. Stories formed in his absence. Some unkind. Some romanticized. Some contradictory. None accurate. And that was acceptable. Truth was never the goal. Survival was. One evening, far from Konoha, Naruto paused and felt the chakra thread snap. Not violently, not painfully, but cleanly. The seal had stabilized on its own. No guardian. No witness. Just history dissolving into the earth where it belonged. Naruto sat down slowly, exhaustion finally catching up to him. It was over. Konoha would never know what had almost destroyed it. And because of that, it never would. Naruto felt the emptiness before he understood it. For years, the secret beneath Konoha had been a constant presence. Like a second pulse layered beneath his own heartbeat. Even when it was quiet, it had weight. Awareness. Pressure. Something that demanded attention simply by existing. Now, there was nothing. No tension in the air. No echo through his chakra. No subtle pull toward a place he was no longer standing on. The silence was not peaceful. It was final. Naruto sat alone on a ridge overlooking a distant valley, the wind moving through tall grass in slow waves. For the first time since learning the truth, he was not guarding anything. And that terrified him more than the secret ever had. Because as long as it existed, he had purpose. Now, all that remained was consequence. He replayed everything in his mind. Every argument he had redirected. Every question he had softened. Every moment he had chosen silence over honesty. Had he done the right thing? Konoha still stood. The village was alive, arguing, growing, struggling in ordinary ways. No mass panic. No ideological collapse. No destruction from within. By every measurable standard, he had succeeded. And yet, Naruto felt hollow. Not regret. Loss. The truth was cruel in its simplicity. Naruto had not just guarded a secret. He had guarded a version of Konoha that no longer needed to exist. The village had changed. It had matured beyond the fragile ideology that once required such a dangerous foundation. The lie had outlived its purpose. But someone had needed to hold it together long enough for that change to happen. That someone had been Naruto. Days passed as he traveled without direction. Not fleeing. Not hiding. Just walking. He helped where he could. Small villages, quiet disputes, problems that did not carry the weight of annihilation. These tasks felt strange after years of existential responsibility. Simple. Human. Naruto realized how long it had been since his struggles had been small enough to solve without sacrificing something essential. One evening, sitting by a fire, Naruto finally allowed himself to feel anger. Not at the village. Not at the Hokage. At the inheritance of it all. Generations before him had buried a truth they could not face and passed the burden forward without knowing who would one day be forced to carry it. Naruto had been born into that chain, molded perfectly by loneliness, endurance, and restraint. He was not chosen by chance. He had been prepared. The thought made his hands tremble. Kurama stirred quietly inside him. You're wondering if they would have done the same for you. Naruto didn't answer. Because he already knew the truth. Naruto understood now why the secret had responded so strongly to him. It wasn't just his chakra. It was his willingness to endure being hated if it meant protecting others. The secret had recognized that trait, and anchored itself to it. And in leaving, Naruto had broken the cycle. Not through strength, through refusal. Far away, in Konoha, life continued. Children trained. Debates rose and fell. Mistakes were made openly, and corrected together. Some restrictions were eventually lifted. Others remained, not because anyone feared what lay beneath, but because no one felt compelled to dig anymore. The village had moved on. And because it had, the secret truly died. Naruto stood beneath a vast sky one night, stars scattered like quiet witnesses. He felt lighter than he ever had, and unbearably tired. He had saved the village from a truth it could not survive. And in doing so, he had removed himself from its story. That was the cost. Naruto Uzumaki never returned to Konoha. Not because he was banished. Not because he was unwelcome. But because returning would have brought the weight of a truth that no longer needed a guardian. The secret was gone. Not revealed, not destroyed, but rendered meaningless by time, distance, and change. The village it once threatened to unravel had grown beyond it. Konoha stood on new foundations now, built not on denial, but on lived resilience. And that had been the goal all along. Naruto carried no proof of what he had done. No record marked his choice. No monument honored his restraint. No voice spoke his name alongside the village's survival. History would remember him for other things. That was enough. Far from the village, Naruto lived quietly. He helped when help was needed. He walked away when presence would have distorted outcomes. He learned how to exist without being essential. And in that learning, he found something unexpected. Peace. Not the peace of victory. Not the peace of recognition. But the peace of knowing that nothing he had guarded would ever be needed again. Konoha thrived. It argued. It stumbled. It healed. Unaware of how close it had once come to breaking beneath the weight of its own history. And because it never knew, it never had to carry that burden. Naruto sometimes stood beneath the open sky and thought of the village lights, of laughter drifting through streets he no longer walked. He did not regret his choice. Because saving a home did not always mean staying inside it. Sometimes, it meant leaving so thoroughly that the danger you carried had no one left to follow.